I believe so. It says so.
Hi, everyone. It's your favorite opinionated, legendary Amerislav, your luckiest person on the planet. At Rich and Hydrated podcast today. Every time we say rich and hydrated, you have to hydrate. And the idea is that every time we hydrate together, we're like creating this portal past times, parallel universes, and dimensions.
I'm here
Even if you
for it.
listen to this in the future, where magic happens. And today with me, talking about magic, today I have Alexander Moore with me, a
Right.
professional. I need some ruffle sounds. Is there any sounds that I can hear?
I got the drum roll.
Professional occultist.
Mm.
And people already know you, but nonetheless.
Nonetheless,
Alex,
tis I.
what is the first response you get after you tell normies, vanilla people, perhaps even religious people, that you are a professional occultist?
Well, so that depends on where I tell them. My favorite place to tell people this is actually in airport bars because I travel a lot for this, and surprisingly enough, people are more likely to believe you when you drop your business card in an airport bar. Because my business card says "Better Living Through Sorcery" on it, and people will look at it and go, "You can't be serious." And I'm like, well, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Why don't you find out? And I've gotten clients aplenty from that, but typically it's some mixture of either, if I'm talking to a normie, it's some mixture of genuine disbelief, incredulity, or kind of outright antagonism. Because if they believe it's real, if they know it's real, I hate even referring to it as believing because it is objectively a thing. But people, if they know it's real, then they have to deal with the whole like, well, who are you to charge money for this service, right? There's that, and if they don't, then it's how are you making any money? How are you successful doing this thing? Because especially in the context of like you're talking to someone else who's say an entrepreneur, and you're both like comparing how well you did this quarter. Talking business, talking marketing, talking this up, and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And they're like, "I sell widgets." Like, "What do you do, Alex?" "I'm a fucking wizard." You know what I mean? Like, we're like, "No, what do you do for real?" And I'm like, "No, for real." And they look at it because, and also, I'm fairly search engine optimized. You look me up, you'll find me under my birth name. I'm not like Raven Feather Never Smiles, the Secret Wizard. I'm Alex. It's my name. So my birth certificate says. So some people will be like, "That's bullshit," and they'll Google it, and they'll be like, "Wow, people like enough people believe in this that this man makes a fucking living on it." Because it's not one of those, "Oh yeah, I'm a professional wizard," but in reality, I'm a dentist or whatever. Like this is my only, this is what I do.
Like it's not like you're LARPing after your normal 9 to 5 job with a cape and like mysterious chants in the background.
No, no, I just got my mysterious chance in the foreground, living my life. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. So much to say. Like forever good. And we're going to discuss like a lot of things. But how would you describe magic? So a little side note. I have found a new Bible and I've been meaning to tell you the Transurfing book.
You mentioned that to me like a month ago.
So I am 700 pages in. It-
Okay.
It's a Bible
Mm.
with tiny letters. Um and I have kicked away everything else in my life because everything else, every even religion fits on this model.
Okay.
Every occult branch, regardless of how opposing, fits on this model. So I'm like obsessed with like, okay, how do we rephrase this and get this to normal people or people who are not interested at perhaps even. How would you describe magic to the skeptic, and how would you describe magic to the full believer already?
All right. So that's decent. To the skeptic, I would describe it as the application of psychic or spiritual technologies to influence people or material change in the world, or to gather intelligence that you did not already have.
That's so good.
Only because I've had to have this conversation. Because I mean, it's one of those things. I have this personal thing that I say that pisses off a lot of other occultists. But if you've never proven to somebody that it works, that didn't believe you, you aren't the thing.
There we go.
You know what I mean? If you can't, if you haven't been able to go, no, here's my, my cards, my future rectangles of cardboard, and I'm going to tell you something about you that I don't know, for example, then, you aren't really the thing. Now, to full believers, I would actually give the same answer, because it is simply the answer, regardless of what your tradition or paradigm happens to be, right? Because if you go, oh hey, there are spirits, and there are non-physical intelligences, right? Like, it means the same thing, and anybody who isn't boneheadedly dumb understands that, right? Like, so you go, yes, you can interact with non-human, non-physical intelligences to get shit done, or you can train yourself in a psychic, astral, or etheric context to get shit done, or ideally you do both. And that's really all it is. It's because people try to make of it too much. I mean, people look at it like, oh, this is a mystical, lifelong path. And for some people, sure, maybe it is. I'm like, it's a
For
craft.
very few, though.
Sure, but I'm like, it's a craft, it's a skill, and it takes you, much like anything else, 18 months of work to learn from zero to the point where you're like intermediately competently good. I look at it the same way as, like, you never played guitar before. Cool, you can get decent in a year if you really work, if you put the time in. It's like anything else, if you're out of shape, you go to the gym for 6 months, and all of a sudden, bing, boom, bam, things are just different for you. So it's not so different. It's a thing that anybody, almost anybody, I will say, there's this tiny percentage of the population that for whatever reason can't, but almost anybody can do these things.
How much does your lineage influence how talented or skilled you are within a magical frame?
Do you mean like your genetic lineage or
Mhm.
your, okay? So I think it's kind of funny that we can look at groundbreaking athletes and say, oh, obviously there's a genetic advantage, or like a bodybuilder, like, yeah, they got the good genes for it. People are sticky about questions of intelligence and lineage and skills and lineage. I think it's pretty much obvious that if you come from a family of people who are good at something, you're probably going to be good at something. Most people, even who are very good at a specific gift, even if they look back at, like, oh yeah, actually I didn't know this, but my grandfather was a musician, or oh yeah, I didn't know this, but my great grandfather or great grandmother had these skills. And it's the same thing with psychic or spiritual gifts. Typically it runs in families. I will say, much like in everything else, occasionally you find someone who just spontaneously develops or evidences a talent. Like, I've known people, for example, who were completely unathletic, who produced like D1 athlete children, and no one knows why. And it wasn't the stepping out with the mailman, hypothetical either. In this case, a paternity test was done because it was like, this, you had to have fucked around, and it wasn't. So sometimes these things happen, but for the most part, like anything else, there is a lineage component if you look into it.
How much does mundane discipline and actual mundane self care influence your occult skills?
I mean, it's everything. It's all, everything boils down to work, practice, diligence. Because it's the thing. It's
No.
like, I know that's the, but it's like anything else. Like, how do you make money? You work, you plan, you consistently produce. How do you get in shape? You diet, you exercise, you consistently produce. Anything, provided you have the baseline ability to do it, is doable on a long enough timeline. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like, are you going to sit down for an hour a day and do a bunch of weird psychic practices? Because that's the thing too, I mean, if you look at like the psychic development books in the early 1900s, especially, they would tell you, like, yeah, man, you got to fucking practice and eventually you'll be good at it. And they give you all these exercises to do. And a lot of people, especially skeptics, just won't do it. The few people I've actually convinced, I'm like, look, you don't need to even believe in this. Just do the exercises and do them honestly, like, try for 6 months, like, take 30 minutes of your day out for 6 months, and you will be aware of the reality of these things if you just try. And that's the thing. I mean, it's all discipline. Everything boils down to discipline.
Occult people are hating you right now so much.
Well, no, honestly, the ones that suck at it are the ones. Well, that's the same thing. It's like
Only the losers are.
no, but this is the only kind of skill set or community, if you can call it that, in the world that doesn't have a standard. Like you go to like a musician's kind of jam session and you get up there and you suck. Everyone's gonna be like, yeah, you need to practice more, bro. I mean, no one's gonna look at someone who's a hobbyist guitar player who only plays cowboy chords versus someone who can fucking play and assume they are the same thing. But for whatever reason, because it's ephemeral and because people don't like to be told, yeah, you need to fucking practice, because they have main character syndrome. They read books where it's like, you're the chosen one person and you're the one that gets to have all the nice things and you're the Mary Sue of the universe and everything's just and that's not how it fucking works. The most lucky, powerful, and fortunate occultists I know made their own luck, made their own fortune, and grew their own power.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And I look, I like conversations like this because it gets to touch on a variety of things. For one, our superiority, right? For two, it gets to, like, in a funnily way, make fun of fucking losers. So like we get best of all worlds, right? Like, and we're educating people. So like I feel like this is a great holy grail.
I mean, I certainly agree with you, but I mean, it really kind of comes down to, like, there's a thing I've been saying lately when I do classes or workshops, and I'll end it with saying weakness is a choice, because it is.
Hallelujah.
And the thing is, it's okay if you're weak today. We've all been there. If you suck today, we've all been there. But do you choose to stay there? Is the thing.
Well, people perceive it as a moral, like this is only in American language, not even British language, like British English. This is only in America, where when you say you are weak, I am weak, I am fat, that people have all these like, right? Like, I have a fat ass. People go like, oh no, but you're so beautiful and you're so pretty and like, oh, you're worth it. I'm like, I still have a fat ass. Like, are we gonna ignore that I have a fucking fat ass? Cannot ignore, right? So when we say I am weak, you are weak, like, it's not all the vomit that comes after. It's a state. It's a descriptor of your current situation.
Yeah, sure. And that's kind of the thing. I mean, another problem I find with a lot of people, and again, I educate occultists for a big part of my living. Like, I will teach you to be better or good, period. And I have people who will come to me, especially in the year of our Lord 2025. The lonely hearts question is a big one. Because, I mean, it's part of the zeitgeist, right? Like, everything that's being talked about in the world is being talked about in occult circles. And people will go, I'm lonely, I want my person, I want this thing, can magic help me? And I'm like, yes, actually, it absolutely can. But you have to be willing to accept that in many cases, you are fucked if you do not apply this. Like, some people have a hard time with the fact that I'm like, maybe you can't get it without this. And it's weird because people are so dear about certain things and not others. Like, when it comes to jobs, it's like, well, you got to pay the bills. It doesn't matter if I'm good enough for the job. I'll use magic to sneak my way in and stay there and do this stuff. But then when it comes to like love or personal satisfaction or whatever, people will hesitate. And my question has always been and will always be, do you want to win? Or do you not want to win? Because again, people will struggle to frame the world in terms of mathematical truth, right? You either won or you lost. At the end of the day, you either made it or you didn't. Even if you make it by the skin of your fucking teeth, you still made it. Or if you lose by an inch, you still lost. It may not be the end of the world, because in many cases you can always try again. But people do have this knee-jerk dislike of looking at this like a skill set that you can be either good or bad at. And I see this a lot. People will say, oh, but I was high priestess of this Wiccan coven for forever. And I'm like, well, what'd you do? Like, how'd you practice? Like, what was your daily practice like? And they're like, well, I mean, I really didn't have one. And I'm like, that's why you suck. Like, you didn't practice every day. You want to be good at something, you practice often, and that's how you do it.
I feel like because we're touching on like a third thing, which is like, the mysterious aspect, the unknown. There's an unknown factor, right? Or not scientifically provable factor, perhaps we can call it that, that people seek it out to bypass the mundane, which then you get these like these everyone has having Peter Pan syndrome, where they just kind of want to float around and just do occult magical stuff and not do the mundane stuff. And well, I think in short term you can absolutely get away with that, but there's a ceiling to that.
Yeah, I agree
Um,
with that.
and I'm like, look, I'm a super skeptic, right? Me, your money witch, triple Capricorn. I still refer to the time, shit, it must have been 10 years ago now, where I was living in London, and I did a super, because I don't do rituals, I call them experiments, because it for my academic thinking calculative brain it works better, so then I don't put like a too much meaning around it. So I did an experiment where 1 month I didn't do any mundane stuff, no any spiritual stuff. So I made a baseline, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 month I did just spiritual stuff. The month after I did only mundane stuff. And the month after that I did and the spiritual stuff and the mundane stuff.
Mm.
And it was interesting to see like what the baseline was without anything. It was interesting to see how much happened with just the spiritual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the spiritual stuff made shit go up like this, then doing just mundane no spiritual stuff was like this, and then doing them both like it doesn't fit in the screen anymore, right? Like it compounded so ridiculously. So maybe you can give the skeptics an easy accessible experiment themselves that they can do just for shits and giggles so they can try it out.
Oh, sure. But before I do that, the funny thing about this as a skeptic's playground, right, is we can talk about, quote, soft sciences like NLP or sales techniques or other things that aren't mathematically verifiable like a machine did it, because there's an aspect of human error to anything a human does. So you can't look at a guitarist, I always use as an example because I play guitar, who, like, you're never going to play perfectly every time. There are going to be days where you fuck up, and if someone just saw you play just now, they don't care how many hours you put in. They don't care how many gigs you crushed. They care that you sucked today.
Right.
And so your skeptic will look at that and go, well, you weren't able to do this, that, and the third. And there's always reasoning behind it. That's funny enough. If you look at the literature, there's a YouTube channel called Museum of Tarot, and I love the guy because he has receipts. He does a lot of research. People have been researching psychic phenomenon for over 250 years in the exact same ways as we do today, with less technology, with the same fucking documented results. In the Soviet Union, in various Asian countries, in Europe, in America, there have always been these kind of research things, and they've all said mostly the same shit. And one of those things is, much like anything else, a level of anxiety affects the outcome of the thing if it's observed, just like anything else. I mean, how many times has someone done something a million times in private, but the first time someone observes you do it? Because performance is a skill in itself. It's a super skill that layers over other things, right? It's why when you first learn to play an instrument, you can be great by yourself, but the first time you jam with people, you're like, I am terrible. What the hell? I wasn't terrible 3 hours ago. This doesn't make sense, but it does when you think about what that is. So when it comes to an honest example, and I'm going to give this specific one because it will piss off the skeptics when it works, but you got to do it the way I say it. So here's the thing. A lot of things that like the new agey types talk about are true, but they have been distorted in terms of how you do it. So let's talk about manifestation. A thing that actually fucking works. And if you look at sports science, active visualization produces repeatable, documented, recordable improvements on performance almost every time. So if we believe that, and you approach manifestation in the same structured way as you approach active visualization for sports science, you can determine things. So let's say you go to the gym, and let's say your PR is here and you want it to be here.
For the listeners, he's like saying your PR is 2 and you want it to be 6.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. So what is it? What would it look like and feel like to win? Because that's the thing. They always have you think about what the manifestation would look like when you have already succeeded. So, and the reason why I pick a numerical thing is you can actually base it. Now, people will talk about the placebo effect, and I'll get to that in a second. But you can numerically base like, oh, this actually fucking works. So what you want to do is you want to train it the following way. You want to go into an alpha state. That's the state that you get when you feel all floaty, like you're about to fall asleep. You're kind of, you don't exactly feel your body. And if you've never done that before, it's not the hardest thing in the world to do. Sit upright in a chair or on a meditation cushion. This way you won't fall asleep, because if you do it in bed, you might just fall asleep and it's kind of not helpful. And count backwards slowly from 100 until you feel yourself. And imagine you're going in an elevator going down, like feel yourself sinking. Now, eventually it won't take 100 counts. Eventually it'll take 2 or 3, but you practice, you start there. So once you reach that point, then for 10 minutes and set a timer, you spam a 10 or 15 second clip in your head of what it would feel like to already have won, already have done the thing. And if you're really spicy, you pick 3 different variations of that and spam one after another, and then repeat. This will be hard. To do that for 10 minutes will be hard, because it'll be like you're doing it. You're like, fuck, I don't know, man. I don't know. Go back to it. Try harder. Keep trying. Do this every day, at least once, ideally 3 times. Now, for the purely magical people out there who only do things like candle magic, which absolutely works, this is the equivalent of doing multiple spells towards the same thing in a single day. That's why it works. Now, again, we have plenty of literature from Neville Goddard and his ridiculous receipts during the Great fucking Depression about how he got like free cruises and shit to go where he wanted to go. And, Joseph Murphy, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, all sorts of literature that people have looked at. And Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, a thing that has produced more millionaires than anything else I'm aware of. I'm just saying, if it works for these people, it ought to work for you. And the reason why you start practicing with something mathematically provable is you get your confidence up. Now, the placebo effect. I would argue that is psychic ability at work. Some people would argue it's just deluding yourself. Here's how you prove that it isn't. Once you stack enough successes at I can lift more, I can run faster, I can do the thing I do better quantifiably, then you pick something that isn't quantifiable. You pick something harder and harder and harder and harder, and you keep pushing this. It's a muscle. You keep training it. And you always train it for something quantifiable at every point in your life, because you're always trying to get better, we hope. If you're listening to this, you probably are on team self-improvement. And this way you become confident in the ability, because it is an ability and it takes time. But eventually you can sit down and go, what property do I want to own? What, vehicle do I want to own? And it's one of those things. It's not simply, oh, I did the manifestation and my $100,000 car still costs $100,000. It's I did the manifestation and somebody gave me one. Or, I got an amazing deal on these acres and acres of land. Or I managed to land the kind of partner I wanted out of nowhere. They just seem to appear. Once you train the skill, it gets better. But here's the rub, the thing that skeptics always have a problem with. This requires a period of practice, trial and error. You have to commit to, I need to see if this works. And if it does, and it will, if you are diligent, unless you are one of the small percentage of the population that can't do it. And that's funny because you bring that up and people are like, it's my gotcha. If I fail because it's not real, I'm just one of those people. Maybe you are, because it's like, there are people out there who can't hear. They will thus never be musicians.
But honestly, because internet definitely produced a gotcha culture. But
sure did.
Your culture, if your mindset is a gotcha, see, it won't work for me, I promise you're going to be right. You don't even have to try it. Like, if by default at the beginning you're like, it's not going to work for me, you're right.
I mean, I agree, but that's one of the reasons why I always point to like sources that have the receipts of like people have been looking into this. If it wasn't real, would everybody be retarded at the same time?
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't.
Exactly.
Governmental agencies across the world would not have put so much money into studying this, and they still do. The fact that remote viewers are still used, the fact that I make a living being paid by companies, business owners, people. And it's not just, oh, bring my ex back. It's like, I want this much profit in 3 months. Can you help me? I need you to tell me things about this employment candidate that I don't know. Can you help me? I want you to, enhance, this. I want you to enhance my ability to have great ideas. Can you help me? If it didn't work, I would not have those clients, and I would not have made it even 6 months in an industry.
What's your I know you have many, so share some of your like biggest, most amazing results. Look, I know some behind the scenes ones, so
Yeah,
I
sure.
can't
So,
say.
okay. Aside from like my business just straight up working, I've healed people of diseases. I've managed to date consistently outside of my league my entire life. I managed to get opportunities to do session music when I couldn't even read music. I mean, things that like you just shouldn't be able to do, doors that shouldn't be able to open. Absolutely have done that. I've remote viewed things that later on I saw accurately. What's another example of just something ridiculous? I've caused harm to people at a distance that should not have been able to happen. I've gotten revenge when I physically, socially, logistically, financially could not have. And I'm a big proponent of like, this shit's real and you can do good and bad with it. I mean, all sorts of things. And the funny thing about responding to these things too is like, this is where even people in the occult community get annoying to me, because a solid 50% of them don't even really believe in magic. A solid 50% of them make their life and their personality off of studying a thing that they don't believe in and they don't actively practice to the point where it works. They make every excuse in the world not to do it the way that it works. And then they go, well, we can never really know. I can. I do.
Well, to begin like a baseline, 90% of the occult community is fucking mentally ill.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. Oh Jesus, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. No, that is remarkably real. The number of
I don't think I've ever seen. Look, I've been in criminal industries, adult industries, shady industries, artistic industries, and I have never seen the level of mental illness as I have in the occult industry.
Yeah, no. I mean, I can't say otherwise. And the funniest thing is, there's this saying that a lot of people will say in the magic community, which is really true. It's like, oh, those of us who are the best at it, you'll never know who they are. You'll never know what they do. And that's true, because when you rise above, and I mean, this is I guess a little bit less true with social media and the fact that more of us who can teach and can do things are coming out and being like, no, here's how it actually works. And then people are taking the courses or taking the training or buying the books or whatever and being like, actually, yeah, this does work. But the best of us, the best I've ever known, they understand that this is a tool and a skill set, but they don't make their sense of self-worth on it. They don't sit back and they're like, and I've met people my whole life. Oh my God, I'm a super powerful witch or druid or wizard, and I live in a literal, trailer park falling apart, ass home, but it's okay because I'm the secret chosen one, and spirits tell me that I'm great and everything. Seen that all the time. The ones I respect are those who go, yes, this is real, this is actionable, this is effective, and this is why I am worth 8 figures. This is why I have the success that I have. This is why. But they also have this humility about them. And some of them are so effectively good at this that they're kind of scary as people in terms of like what they're potentially capable of. And they just look at it as another thing to put in the toolbox. Because the things they're the most proud of are not limited to psychic ability or magical ability. They're over there like, look at this business I built. Look at this real estate empire that I own. Look at, my athletic results. Look at all these things. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I also, do this meditation practice or do this thing or do that thing. There's something that what's his name? Gordon White of Rune Soup said that really has always stuck with me. And he said, go to an occult conference and go to the most healy-feely new agey conference and look at the cars in the parking lot. You will see whose practice has greater results. And honestly, as much as people don't like to hear it, that's true. Now, I would argue that there's also a problem with how people aim their practices.
Can we go to a conference together? I'll bring the Lambo.
and I'll bring a preposterous truck that upsets people. Point is, honestly though, but the thing is, I've been to some of those conferences, and a lot of the time, it seems to me like and again, I haven't been to as many as some, so I may be wrong. There may be literally like there may be people in the audience like, actually, I went to this thing and it was great, cool, awesome, and I believe you, but you know, I have seen a lot of people who make a series of excuses, and I would argue that's because, especially in the United States, but the English-speaking world writ large, there haven't been stakes in people's use of this. Like, you go to West Africa, that magic better fucking work. You go to Eastern Europe, that magic better fucking work. Brazil, better fucking work. You go to America, and again, it's one of the best things about this place, you don't really need it to work necessarily. You have other avenues towards greater first world level success. And that kind of trickled down. You know, you had luxury beliefs aplenty, and they still do a little bit. But this started way back in like Victorian lodge magic of, oh, we're all essentially aristocracy or otherwise successful professionals. Using this for personal gain is selfish and spiritually wrong. And it's like, cool, third generation old money person. That must be lovely for you to say because you've never known a day's physical labor. And you see that a lot with these people. And it has trickled down since into this like, oh, it's unethical to get something with this. It's unethical to sell this skill or training. It's unethical to want. And it's funny because that's such a departure from even the origin of like new thought, and some of the new agey stuff was like, no, you deserve it. God loves you the best. You should want everything unapologetically. Or like we were talking about new avatar power the other day with it's like advertisement language where it's like, you know,
it's so fun. It's like, if you do this, you get to buy one, get 10 for free. Like,
and honestly, my favorite though is it's like just like Jimmy was short and ugly and has leprosy, and now he's dating a supermodel, and you're like, what the fuck?
But for those of us who tried it, we're like, holy shit, this works.
No, honestly, I was mad. I was mad when it worked as well as it did, and I'm like, now, granted, you know, I don't have leprosy, thankfully, but if I did, but truly, like, it's funny as hell to me because there are these luxury beliefs of like, it's more important to be good than to have an abundance of things. It's more important to be just than to be comfortable. It's more important for other people to be happy than for me to be happy. And it's funny because for as much as people talk about, there's another bugaboo I have that pisses people off. For as much as people talk about like how oppressive the culture can be to those of us who are magically oriented, and there have been periods in history, I have my own opinions about the witch burnings that piss people off too, but there have been periods in history where that may have been true more than others. But at the same time, people would rather hate themselves and limit their own growth than grow past the people who hate them. It has always vexed me because you are not served by serving others more than yourself to the detriment of yourself.
I would even argue, if you are serving others at your own detriment, it's by far the default for a miserable life. And on psychological level, on spiritual level, on trend surfing level, like every level, it never seems to work out. I was just Googling, by the way, occult conferences.
Oh,
I would love fucking pulling up with you. I know you have a business, so you would have to pull up, and you have to be like semi-professional. But shit, I would love pulling up in a Lambo with a shirt, "Stop Being Poor." And
See, but the funny thing, the telling thing would be the fact that you have a lot of people, and this is a meme in the occult community, but it's like, oh, you're a big bad necromancer, evil witch, but if you miss your Zoloft for today, you're absolutely useless. And or oh, you're a big bad necromancer, evil witch, but you can't make a doctor's appointment on the phone. The thing is, people would be angry at you, but nothing bad would happen to you because they can't. Most people, and again, as a result of pure lack of training, if they were anything like they ought to be, they could body someone for doing that. But they're not. And they'll make every excuse for it, but to realize that they're simply not capable. And again, this isn't me saying they never could be, they can be, and that's the frustration. When you teach a thing, especially when you teach a thing, and you see people's unwillingness to practice, to do things, to do the things that you're like, no, but it's all there. And especially in our world today, we live in a golden age. You can learn in 2 years what took me 24.
Word.
And that's amazing. Like, I'm excited. I'm learning more stuff all the time. I have teachers that, with the result of the miracle of modern technology, I can learn from remotely before I ever go visit them, for an initiation or like an in-person training or whatever. Like, it's wonderful. You can do so much from the privacy of your own home. You don't have to upend your life and go live with someone for years in hopes that they really have the thing. Because once upon a time, you did have to do things like that. Once upon a time, you hoped that the Rosicrucian lodge that you would join actually had some juice rather than just a glorified Rotary Club. You know what I mean?
Like, and even right now, the Mason people? Like, is the 34th level?
Yeah, the Freemasons. Yeah.
The Freemasons, right? I suck at names. Like, they still exist, right? And like the ones you can publicly like Google, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like 2 years ago, they had some kind of charity event to collect money, and there were 46 people, and they collected $4,000. I'm like, y'all are occultists, and 46 people managed to only collectively make 4K. That's the saddest. Like, that makes my pussy dry.
So I'm not as familiar with the Freemasons in general, but lodge magic as a whole is fascinating when you look at it, because the same thing that's happening with that has happened with that. I shouldn't say happening, it has happened, is what happened with a lot of career and traditional education things. Going that route did not give people what it promised, and so people struck out on their own and were like, you know what, okay, fine. Because the thing is, imagine, like, you're like, oh my God, magic is real and these spiritual mysteries are real, and I'm going to join this thing. And they're like, cool, I'm going to drip feed you maybe a little bit over the course of years while you pay your dues and you do all these things. And maybe, just maybe, if I choose to like you enough, if you kiss my ass enough, you're going to get some of the juice, some of the real stuff. By the time you're, frankly, so far past your prime in life that, and that's another thing too, some of them would be like, oh, we'll only teach you magic if you're 45 and you've already basically succeeded at life. That's suboptimal. That's like saying we're only going to teach you exercise science when you're 50. Again, it would not be bad for you. It would be great for you. But you would always look back and be like, shit, if I only just had this. And now we have a world where for fucking free, like ever since Esoteric Archives came out years ago, putting all those grimoires up there and everything up there, there has not been an excuse for not being good at this other than you just don't want it bad enough. And it's true in anything else. But the problem is, you can say that, just to reiterate my fucking rant that I always have, you can say that about anything. Yeah, man, you just don't want to be a musician enough to practice every day. They're like, yeah, all right, yeah. Or you just don't want to, you don't want to be fit enough to eat better. Yeah. But you can't say you don't want magic enough to train. And then people are like, well, now that's a bridge too far. And I always point that out, because I've never seen an adequate answer to, like, what the fuck? Why are you like this?
Well, and it's one of my frustrations. I've said this ad nauseum. Like, as someone who speaks 9 languages, right? Like, the definition, when people tell me want is a behavior, it's not just a word, right? When you say you want something, I am taking that that you are showing up in a way that amplifies the potentiality to get those results, to get that thing you want. Otherwise, what you are saying is, I would like this thing if it would happen to fall in my lap without me having to do any work for it.
Yeah,
But you
that is
use
precisely.
want because it's shorter.
No. I agree with you. I again preaching to the choir in this case for sure, but that's really what it is. I mean, because I mean, and I tell students, for example, like this will suck, this will be hard, but the other side of the suck is everything you've ever wanted.
And the
You know,
bar is so low.
the bar is remarkably low, especially because, and this is another thing I tell people, I'm like, if you do put the time in and the training in, you're in a target rich environment. No one else can do these things but you. It's an unfair advantage that you can cultivate today. And I mean, it's true. I was telling this to a student the other day, because and this guy's a fucking beast. He's a legend. And if you see this, my boy, you know who you are.
I love it. I
But,
don't know who you are, but I love you.
but honestly, but he was like, okay. He said basically like, what do I need to do with magic and also outwards to be like in the top echelon of humanity? And I'm like, at this point, go to the gym at all, learn a combat sport at all, do magic well, period. Own your own business and be even remotely successful. You know, the new middle class of $100,000 a year. And have a girlfriend. And you are in fact in the highest echelon of our species. It has never been easier in some ways to be that, because you know, and you can look up, and that's another thing too, you can learn anything in any way you want to learn. You know, you're and doesn't mean you won't need specialists for some things. Like, you know, I can fix a basic plumbing issue in my sink, but I can't like rewire my house. That's beyond my skill set. However, you can learn all these things, and the funny thing is, like, you don't need to devote your entire fucking life to the study of esoterics to be able to actionably use this. And that's another myth that you see. Like, no, this can literally be a skill that you practice to have an unfair advantage within the world. There was and I sing this thing's praises constantly, but like the Silva method from 1970 something until recently, and then it kind of went away, and then it kind of came back in a shittier version on Mind Valley. The Mind Valley one is shit.
But also, by the way, it's like the for everyone listening, it's Da Silva method. So like silver in like a rap way, Silva.
Yeah, but truly, like, it's one example of like a psychic training program that has more people than anything I could think of over the course of decades that were like, yeah, I had addiction problems and now I don't. And yeah, I had this weight issue and now I don't. And they're not out there thinking they're big spooky wizards. They're not out there doing these.
They're normal people.
And they practice every day. You know, I mean, like one example, right, that I always thought was interesting was they would tell you, you know, when you're training the remote viewing part, they're like, yeah, before you go into a store that you've never been in, sit in your car and remote view the inside of the store and then go in and see how right you were. And they said the first 50 times you try this, you will fail. And it's the thing, and you and I talk about this all the time. There's a difference between, oh man, I gotta try 50 times, and oh shit, it only takes 50 times. Bet. Like, and that's the thing. You want to have the latter.
Good.
You want to have the latter outlook every time, because if you're enthusiastic and you believe in yourself, you can do all kinds of shit, because everything is both harder than you think at first and easier than you think when you look back. You know, like it's always just 2 more steps than you think you can take. You know, recently in terms of working out, I've been doing farmers carries at the suggestion of a friend of mine, and it's a perfect mental toughness exercise, because it's literally like, no, I can do 2 more steps. No, I can do 2 more steps. It's fine. I can do it. Like when you train to literal failure, and you feel so good about yourself because you're like, no, I really pushed. I did everything I could. I did everything I could to get that done. And if you think about, especially esoteric training in the same way, like I could do 10 more minutes. I could do this. I can, you know, let's say you start with 10 minutes a day with the manifestation practice, and you're like, I can do 11 today. I can do 10 minutes and 30 seconds. I can do whatever. You know, you can look at these things as a progressive overload like anything else. And you will reap the rewards of everything. But it really kind of comes down to like, the whole you reap what you sow. If you plant nothing, you harvest nothing.
And it's with stuff like this. And after this, I have one closing question for you. But with stuff like this, I feel like it's which becomes very mindset and psychology. Is what's your relationship to being a beginner, right? Like when you say like, "Hey, do the first 50 times you're going to fail," I'm like, "Fuck yeah." You know what the growth line after those 50 times are going to be? I love it. Like only fucking 50 times? We good.
But also, like that's true. You need to always be courting the feeling of being a beginner in your life in general. And the way you can do this too is like when you look at people's progress. Like if you want to learn something, follow because you always see people on YouTube being like, "Oh, my fitness journey, my guitar playing journey, my whatever." And then when you look back at like the progress compilation, like the collage of progress pictures, or like, "Oh, this is where I was 6 months ago on guitar. This is where I am now." Or this is where I was with this skill and this is where I am now. You realize that like a lot of things take less cumulative time than you think that they do. And if you court being a beginner, you court that enthusiasm of like, yeah, you know what, I always have something to look forward to, but also it's a good humbling exercise to suck at something.
So good.
It keeps you, it's kind of funny because like I say this and I've actually gotten pushback from this in interviews where people are like, well, it's easy for you to say because you're already so far along at so many things. And sure, fair enough. But how did I get there? I sucked a lot.
I'm going to push back. Not fair enough. You are only in the position where it comes easy because you did the steps.
Yeah, no, I can dig that. Although I would actually push back, and like it doesn't need to be easy.
Oh, like you're preaching to the choir. This is East Europe, baby.
Everything is simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily need to be easy. And when people understand the distinction between that, because like that's the thing. I mean, if it's never hard, you're not growing. Mm-hmm. If it's never challenging, if you don't ever feel that stress pressure against you in some form, then you're not becoming a better version of whatever that thing happens to be. And this is true in this is with everything. One of the example exercises that everyone in the occult doesn't do and they should is like hold an image in your mind for as long as you can and rotate that motherfucker. Rotate the apple. Spin the apple. Everything comes down to spin the fucking apple. And like it's hard. It never stops being hard. Because some days you can do it better than others. Some days, it's easy as fuck compared to other days. So because you're stressed, you're distracted, you're dehydrated, perhaps. You
not here on the podcast.
No. We stay hydrated on the podcast, and I stay hydrated a lot. But like, you can always push more. And I think the biggest thing too is like, you don't need to be perfect.
I was literally about to go there because I feel that most people confuse. They have a distorted relationship to heart and conflating it with perfectionism. And for the sake of ease, I always use my 75 hard, right? Like there's days where I am lifting and running up the mountain. And I guarantee you the day after I'm crawling and I even cry sometime, like actually out of pain. But neither of the days I'm not doing it. Like I'll be doing it on both days, but they look different. So the heart on a day when I've slept well, when I'm not sore anymore looks completely different versus a day after hard, right? Like that hard. Because then I'm just crawling, but that's as hard as I can go. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to constantly like PR. And that's the same for all these things. Like you're not trying to do things perfect. You just have to do them.
No, for sure. I mean, that's kind of like, it's kind of like a thing that you can even look at in terms of like esoteric practice. If you practice energy work, as broad a term as that is, there are days when you're going to be crushing it. You're going to feel things. You may even see things with your naked eye eventually and have all these cool experiences. And then there are some days when you don't feel and see anything hardly. There are times when you'll do a spell and everything will align and it'll be beautiful. There'll be times when you feel like you are making shit up. And I'm here to say I have had more times where I was like, that elaborate daydream feeling produced amazing results to the point where you are almost like, did I really make that shit happen? Did I really? But then they're like, but how could I not? And that's another thing too. Like after a while, you stack so many positive results that could only have been this thing, because a lot of people will try to talk around it, and I'm not saying that there isn't a place for healthy skepticism in this, because some things, just like everything else, some systems are not as good as others. Some trainings are not as good as others. Some trainings are bad, very bad, and some are extremely good and effective. You should always optimize for that which is the most effective, that which produces the results the hardest and the best.
And for which you have a version of talent. And in business, I use the example like someone with my body would not excel at being a ballerina. Now, being a dancer, boxer, I got you, right? So, and vice versa for someone who's like, who has a body made for like climbing or marathon running, they're not made for the other stuff. Like you can make it easier, air quote, for yourself by doing something that aligns with certain talents. So if you have a adaptive intelligence, or if you're very visual, like use that, go ham on that.
Oh, agreed. No, I mean you should definitely try to optimize for your gifts in everything, magic or the mundane world. And but the thing is, like, the funny thing and kind of the tragic thing is there are so many people who have spiritual gifts that never optimize them, who live lives that are less amazing than they could be if they used them.
Let that be the closing one. What do you have to say to the people who are not utilizing their spiritual gifts or talents?
Well, the only thing I have to say is the thing I always say: everything you want is real. Everything you want is real. Someone is going to have it. It might as well be you. If it isn't you, that means you gave it to somebody else. And I don't know about you, but I'm not that nice.
Oh my God, so fucking good. This is the perfect fucking ending. This is so good. So good. Okay, look, everyone, Alex is my personal he's a mentor, he's a friend, he's a if I need a ritual done, I go to him. What do you call that? You're my personal what?
I'm the wizard. I'm the man.
He's my personal wizard.
Yeah.
Get yourself a personal wizard. I will have all the fucking links everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Practical Occult, your courses, Epic.
Yep.
If you have different time management like I do, outsource it to the great Alexander. Right. So good. Anything else that we need to mention?
The only thing I guess is actually I am gonna have a course coming out. I'm gonna drop it at the beginning of August. I have a bunch of classes, but this course will be a ground zero to hero kind of. If you want to learn how to really do magic and really make it work and know the nuts and bolts and hear everything, because what I've done is I've compiled from students, from beta testers, from all the stuff people wanted to know from a teacher, from a book, from a whatever. They're like, I never heard this until you said it to me, or until I started learning this from another person. So it's like I'm trying to put everything together in a course. It's a self-paced. You're going to get all the information loaded in. There's going to be a Discord. There's going to be a community. I will say the community will have a standard of practice. You got to show up, or you can't continue to be a part of it. But if you want to learn this, and you want to learn this in the community of people who also want to learn this, who want to work hard and make the thing happen, it's coming. And I will toot my own horn and say that I have not seen the like of it existing, because it's what I wish that I had when I started.
Perfect. Absolutely. That's what we need. Epic.
Right on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being Rich and Hydrated. We need to make this a bi-weekly thing, because we have opinions.
We do have opinions. Hey, I'm always here to have opinions, and I'm always here to be hydrated.
I'm gonna hang up in a bit. Don't close the window yet, and we're gonna just set one in 2 weeks again.
That works.
Everyone, Rich and Hydrated, like, share, yell at me in the DMs or in emails or publicly. Join the Anti-Bara Facebook group. I don't know how to find it. It's a secret group, but I still see the screenshots now and then. Tell me what triggered you, what angered you, what pissed you off, and what you like. This was Alexander Moore. and your favorite opinionated legendary Ameris Luft.